Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our April 26th council meeting. I would just like to get numerous residents in our community who have COVID and are recovering, so that's a good thing. To the businesses that were so resilient, council would like to say thank you, and we're glad that some of you are operational again, and hopefully we'll get through this. I'd like to call the meeting to order. With the adoption of the agenda. I lost my agenda. Oh, here it is. Okay, so under 6, approval of minutes. There's a correction there that should say April 12th. Under 18.3, Boreal Housing. 18.4, updates on policing. And I'd like to move 15.1 to 13.7, the community update on the flight towers. 15.5 to 13.8. 15.6 to 13.9. And 13.10 will be SETI. Is there any other changes?
Madam Mayor, administration has no additions to the agenda.
Okay, thank you. So with those changes, could I have someone move to accept the agenda, please? Deputy Mayor, all in favor? Carried. Everybody's had a chance to read the minutes, and the minutes are correctly labeled. Is there any errors? Business? If not, can we have a mover? Councillor Welke, all in favor? Carried. Is Councillor Jessamine online?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay. So, my report, April 14th, I was on AUMA conference. April 14th, I also had a meeting with the CAO with Minister Dreeshen, who is Minister of Forestry and Agriculture. We had a very productive meeting with him. He was very interested in our facility, and he said that he would be happy to be an advocate for our facility and to contact him with and when we would like things to move forward. He didn't say I have, $30 million, but we're hopeful. April 15th, AUMA conference. You can read that through. April 15th, Chris Workington, who's our Member of Parliament. Council had what we feel was a productive meeting with him as well, and he's going to take this forward to his counterparts in Ottawa. We discussed the fact that Minister Carr, we were hoping that he would bring it forward, but he's been very sick and has not been in many meetings or anything. So Chris will take this to his caucus and see what he can do. April 16th, AUMA again. He discussed, Minister McIver, who is Municipal Affairs Minister, said at this that there was a decrease in our base funding, and it was to be split by municipalities as part of Bill 56 to rein in spending. He discussed how Albertans' expenditures far exceed other provinces, and they know that this cannot be sustainable, so they have to do something. He went on to state that we have an $18 billion deficit already in our budget, and he said most Albertans would agree that we have to live within our means, and that's why he's cutting funding to the municipalities. April 16th, not that we agree with him, but April 16th, SETI, we met to discuss how to administrate a handover and whether we had capacity to continue on. April 19th was the Women in the North Conference. Boreal Housing, April 20th, which I will talk to you at in camera. On April 20th, I met with AFPA Jason Cribbs, who's the new CAO, and he discussed how the forestry industry is deeply concerned about the initiatives of the government of Alberta that threaten to drastically increase the cost of electricity. This is already happening at mechanical mills and panel mills. Mechanical pulp mills. He also went on to say that failed mills will affect small businesses and communities negatively, which we know very well. So all these proposed changes would likely see an increase of more than 10% to the forestry mills. And they feel it's unfair targeting of them, especially when they are making lots of money now, I guess, and maybe that's why they feel they're being targeted. But AFPA has partnered with 9 other organizations to write a letter, and he is asking that our municipality write a letter, and the potential recipients are there, showing our support for AFPA, which TOCO is not a member of, but I believe West Fraser is. April 21st, this is one that I would really like council to partake in, is the Bistu sub-regional plan. I strongly encourage any citizens of the Northwest that are listening tonight to read the plan, to go to the Government of Alberta webpage and Google Bistu sub-regional public engagement. And there's a survey there, and you can take the survey after reading the plan and give your input into whether you like what it is, what's there, or you hate what's there. I want to reinforce that the sub-regional task force worked very hard at this plan. It was a give and take. We gave up some, but we also gained a lot. So we would appreciate everybody going onto the webpage and taking the time to do the survey. Otherwise, it will look like we don't care up here, and maybe we'll all end up parks again one day. There is a May 6th meeting, public engagement. You can register. There's times at 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 7 o'clock. And once again on May 18th, so they have a short presentation. You can ask questions of the Government of Alberta planners, and you can actually give your feedback right there to them as well. And this is available on that web page as well. So I strongly encourage you, whether you're a trapper, an outfitter, a recreational person, a hunter, gas, oil, forestry, whomever, whatever industry or whatever you represent, to please go and try and fill this out. April 21st, once again, Women of the North. April 21st, we also had our first sponsorship task force. We discussed how to proceed with finding sponsors. We reviewed the term of reference and decided to add 1 Dene public member and 1 town public member. And the Director of Community Services will be compiling packages, and we will be making the initial contact with some of the businesses. April 23rd, the last one of Women of the North. The Women of the North has been a conference that's been held since 2007, and this was the first time it was held virtually, so it was a little different. It was all done at noon hour time, like from 11:45 to 1 o'clock. So that's my report. If you have any questions, I would answer them. None? Okay. Could I have someone accept my report then?
I will accept your report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan, all in favor? Carried. Council committees, Deputy Mayor.
April 14th, 15th, and 16th, the same AUMA Spring Convention as the mayor. That's it.
Okay. Councillor Anderson.
April 15th, met with MP Chris Worthington, and I thought it went over quite well. I guess as good as we could expect.
Yeah.
April 15th, IMPC meeting, which was to do with the subdivision, subdivision.
Councillor Jessamine.
Councillor Jessamine appears to be muted.
You're muted. Okay, Councillor Morgan.
April 15th, I also attended the meeting with MP Workington, and also April 15th, I attended the IMPC meeting. I am the chair of the IMPC committee again. And April 20th, I attended the sponsorship committee that the mayor attended. And that is all I have to report.
So at your IMPC meetings,
Yes.
do you pass subdivision, or do you pass things?
Yep.
Oh, so what is south of town?
So a resident south of town has divided their property back up, separating the old total shop from the lot that they were on.
Mm. Councillor Welke.
I have no meetings to report.
Okay. Could I have someone move the committee reports in?
So moved.
Councillor Anderson, thank you. All in favor? Carried. The council action list. Any questions on it? I think I had a question. So we have moved the, this is for Director Straw. The Bushy water line, is that deferred again to May 12th?
Yes, Madam Mayor, the Bushy water line is the agreement, the final agreement to connect.
Yep.
Currently, Bushy's working with IST to do their subdivision out there, and I think that will probably formalize the agreement at that time, as Bushy's requesting to supply, for us to supply the sewer treatment services, so they'll be potentially running a line back to us.
Okay.
So we hold the final agreement to ensure that it was a comprehensive agreement instead of having two separate agreements.
Okay. And any updates on the broadband letters that we sent?
Not at this time, Madam Mayor.
Nothing? Okay.
Actually, Madam Mayor, we did receive a letter from FCM saying that they're slowly going through their list of applicants. Sorry, I didn't ask that. Broadband. No, we have not received anything on broadband. Asset management should be reviewed sometime in the next 10 months.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Could I have someone move the report, please? Councillor Welke, all in favor? Carried. So the 13.1 flag lowering.
Madam Mayor, administration is presenting for council's adoption of policy to formalize our procedures regarding the lowering of flags to half-mast. This is a compilation of procedures from the Canadian government, the Alberta government, and the practices of the town at high level. I'll answer any questions the council may have.
I'll move the recommendation.
Deputy Mayor moves the recommendation for the flag lowering policy. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. 13.2 is the proposed fees bylaw.
Director Phillips will answer any questions of council.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Administration has recommended an annual fees bylaw to be brought forward with amendments to previous year. There are 5 schedule changes to the 2021 fees bylaw, and administration requests that council provide first, second, and third reading to the proposed 2021 fees bylaw.
Okay. This is a rise and report. Is there any outstanding questions about it? Okay, could I have someone move first reading then?
I'll move first reading.
Councillor Morgan, all in favor? Could I have someone move second reading? Councillor Anderson, all in favor? And could I have someone move unanimous consent, please? Deputy Mayor, all in favor? Carried. And finally, third reading.
Third reading.
Councillor Welke, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Director Phillips will also take 13.3.
Okay, so the assessment contract.
So administration is requesting that council extend the current assessment service agreement with Accurate Assessment Group Limited for 5 years, expiring in the 2026 assessment year, with a further 5-year renewal up to 2031 assessment year, unless terminated by either party.
Okay. Any questions? Could I have a
I'll move the recommendation, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Morgan? All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. 13.4 is the town revitalization grant, or revitalization.
Madam Mayor, this recommendation comes from a rise and report of Committee of the Whole. We are recommending that the town high level provide Sacred Warrior Yoga with a revitalization grant in the amount of $919.
Okay. Any more questions on that? Okay, could I have a motion, please? Councillor Anderson, all in favor? Carried. Either Terry woke up or the owl. Next one is an RFD for a spray patcher.
Madam Mayor, I will present that RFD.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Well, so before you have an RFD, and I've laid out, I'm not going to read through the whole thing completely. I'll try to give a synopsis to the public. If you've noticed, we've driven around town lately with all the snow gone and now all the water gone. We do have a considerable amount of potholes and cracks developed. Now, traditionally, we do an annual spray program or every other year. 2019, we didn't do much because of the fire, and last year we didn't do any program because of the rain. So if you've noticed, a lot of the cracks have opened up considerably larger than a normal crack within the road. That has to do with the drying of the subbase and then the wetting of it and the moisture underneath. So our typical process, other than sweeping the streets throughout the year and then late in the year, late summer, we try to get it, the cracks, just the long cracks filled. And then our pothole program consists of what we consider a throw-in process. We purchase a cold mix solution. It's a granular product. We put it in the hole, we pack it down, and a day or two later, or a week later, or sometimes they last, we're back replacing it. It's not the most viable, as it doesn't adhere always to the asphalt around it, and it's supposed to be considered a temporary fix. Now, with the larger amount of roads we have in town and the increase, I can't see us resurfacing all these roads at once. We have to increase the life of our roads through maintenance. So this year, we discussed it in operations, we've looked around town, and we used to have a unit which was an AMZ, it was called, and it was a spray patching unit. For those that don't know, the spray patching unit is a trailer unit that holds a hot emulsion, and then you feed very fine aggregate or gravel into it. So you go up to a pothole or crack and you blow it out with high pressure air, and then you spray a tack oil, and that seals the hole as well as creates a place for the fill to put in, and it adheres to the ground better. So then you, after that, you spray the emulsion, which is a gravel mixture that goes into the hole, and it levels out. One of the advantages of doing spray patching is we don't have to go along and use a packer or the wheel of a truck to try and pack the hole down. And then the final coat is just a very thin layer of the aggregate to keep it from sticking to the wheels. This spray patching system also has a wand attachment for it, so while you're doing the major potholes, you can fill up the smaller cracks, and then the deeper cracks or the wider one you can fill. So a couple of meetings ago you had mentioned that the trails were developing large cracks. This unit would fill the crack with an aggregate or some base material, then seal it with the sealer. If we filled it with sealer alone, a lot of it would drain away, and it's very ineffective as well as costly to try and fill these cracks up with a latex sealer. So this is a process that's used quite a bit in large cities. Like I said, we did have it years and years ago, probably 15 years ago. It was a good machine, but we bought it used, and it was in rough shape when we had it. We ran it for a couple of years. It was very effective, but then it failed, catastrophically failed, and we got rid of it. And then we moved towards privatization. It is our intent to get away from the privatization and just the crack sealing alone and move this operation back into public works where it belongs, so we can continue to work on these potholes. One of the main advantages by having our own equipment and material is we can do it throughout the year. If we find a pothole show up, we can go out and do it. We're not hiring a contractor to come in and do crack sealing and then leave. The other advantage is because it's a hot base mix, we can apply it in temperatures as low as -18. So this time of year when the ground's cold, it makes no difference. We can get out and get after our potholes right away and get it completed. Now the unit base that's within the RFD is available, so within 30 days of potentially approving this process, we could have the unit in town and proceed then. The unit would be pulled by our sander, which we would use to feed the aggregate into the hopper. And when we do trails around town, because the trails are considerably narrow, it would have to be pulled around with one of our larger 3/4 ton trucks, and then we would have to hand shovel the gravel into the hopper, but it is still viable. Now, we've put a couple of financing options in there. One was our recommendation is to remove the MSI funding from the hydrovac project and then supply the hydrovac funding directly from reserves for that 140,000. I would like to speak a little more directly on the hydrovac cost itself, but currently it's out for tender, so I don't want to play our hand too well as to what our budget is. But our current discussions are showing that budget could be significantly lower, so it is our intent to come in considerably lower. We do have units available that are already pre-made, and it's pretty exciting. We could have delivery as soon as mid-June instead of 9 months where we were looking earlier. So with that, I'm open to any questions on this process. There is a brochure there. It shows the item of the machine. There was some options, so we applied the options we thought were viable. There was a sign package that came with it. I think it was $11,000. We looked at aftermarket signage for it, and it's considerably less, so you'll see the difference in price.
Deputy Mayor?
So do we have adequate storage for the emulsion?
Yes. So that product comes in totes. So we just store it in totes and then pump it into the machine as we need it. Because it's heated, it's wrapped with a blanket and it's plugged in every night. And we already have an area at the shop that we can plug it in to keep it warm. So when you're ready to go out, the emulsion's preheated, it's ready to go. You don't have to worry about going through a whole warm-up process. The aggregate is similar to the jet sand we use at the airport. And we're looking at potentially using the airport's jet sand stock as our aggregate and then replacing it with fresh stuff. So again, we can recycle or cycle the jet sand at the airport and use it up, and then they get fresh jet sand every fall, and we're not trucking and storing in a separate place.
I didn't realize it came in totes. It usually comes like 40,000 liters at a time.
It does come in totes. They thinking about us. Non-refundable totes, I might add, but it does come in totes.
Is there any possibility to piggyback off of the Prairie Group, because they do stock some of this in their yard?
Yeah, we haven't looked at the supply logistics completely, and I'm sure that somehow the Prairie might have a similar product. There is two products, so we might be able to get the product with the Prairie and use bulk and then buy as needed. I haven't investigated that yet. It was too early in the decision process to get into all the formal details. The worst case scenario, we would bring it in totes.
Because I've been seeing the Prairie with one of these units, but they have on to do Highway 58Es.
Yes.
It's a pretty neat process.
They are. There is one other unit that is available, and maybe in the future we'll be looking for it, and it's an asphalt reclaimer. So we can use millings and heat it up and actually fill the potholes with asphalt. City of Grand Prairie has purchased one, and I had a look at it, and it's pretty neat, but it's not here today, so that is a future thought.
Councillor Welke, do you
When you have to do repair work on roads and cut out a, fairly large section, would this machine help, like when you have to, like say, get at water lines or gas lines or in the back alleys and things where there's a lot of just aggregate or millings, like poor asphalt anyways? I've noticed sometimes when those holes are repaired, then it's a lot of that driving back and forth to pack it down. Would this product help in that area, or do you need that solid base?
So yes and no. So usually the back alley issues are utility companies searching for gas lines and stuff, and typically it's up to them to repair it. But if there is a hole within the back alley or a laneway, or even in the street for our major repairs, it doesn't put enough material. It's a lot of material for a large patch, but it does have the emulsion, the tack oil, and the stuff to seal it and for asphalt. And usually when Canelson or one of the local asphalt suppliers are supplying asphalt, we can pick up asphalt and repair the patch ourselves, but it gives us the base, it gives us the tack oil and the sealant to prepare it, so when we lay the asphalt in, it's not full of water and moisture. But because the patch is so large, it's just too much. It's an expensive process when you get into the very large patches.
Like the costs per
Yeah.
surface area are quite high, but if you're just filling cracks. then it's-
Right, but it would be used in conjunction, so we can do our own tack oil in preparation. It also works very well on bird bass, so where you have a divot, you can layer it level, so it will no longer hold water. We can also use the spray patching in around catch basins and manholes, where you see on the side of the curb, a catch basin will have a concrete cack around it, and we can fill in there so the water flows into the catch basin better and doesn't accumulate at the front of it. We can fill up a certain amount of void. The materials issue would be for our contracted ceiling.
We have some feedback happening. Thank you.
Yeah, so we would use our current operating budget for materials this year, and we'd get a really good idea of what next year's material costs. Again, we would try to do as much as we could this year, especially when our primary roads are most heavily driven. The secondary residential area might not all get it. It depends on how far we have to go.
That was gonna be my other question, is the two main roads going
You
into,
only get one at a time.
that's why I jumped in there really quick. Those two main roads going into Toko, like the one from each highway. Did we budget already? We were gonna be fixing those or no? And so would this allow us to maybe do some fixes up on those roads to make them, to put off the major repairs?
Yes, so anywhere where there's crackage and water is sitting, we can seal it and reduce the amount of damage, but it's not gonna fix it
It's
because
not
the
a
road is.
paver.
Yeah, the road is rutted.
Like those two we sort of acknowledge need to be completely redone? Yeah.
Yeah, so the town and 2019 and 2020 did a 92nd Street, 114th Avenue study. That study and tender package will be complete within this next month or so, and we'll be sitting on it. That package will be sent for STIP funding through the Alberta government, and because we had STIP funding last year, we couldn't apply this year, and we're gonna apply to get it. We're gonna see if we can get STIP funding for 2020. That, when the study's done, we'll be bringing it to council and you'll be able to see the actual cost to perform that work. Millions, one or two, so it's not cheap. The 114th Avenue one was a little more because the recommendation was to widen it slightly as well as reduce some of the sub-base. But 92nd Street was simply a mill and overlay because the sub-base was good. One of the things that will be recommended within the study that we'll have to address in the near future is the amount of heavy loads we put over in the spring. We'll have to look at maybe putting future road bands on during that time of the year when it's wet, or, you know, because if you look, it's very heavy rutting, and that's basically from the amount of traffic and the weight on it. The mill road itself, the recommendation in the future may be just graveling it for the short term until the asphalt portion comes through. Again, that'll be all dependent on the STIP funding and what level of funding we can get to perform that work. But we are going to be ready to apply for that this year.
Any other questions? I think it'll be money well spent.
Thank you. We do too.
Just stumbling in the cracks, falling in them on the trails is treacherous.
Yes, ma'am. And we're pretty excited about making use of the product.
I'll move alternative one.
All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
While you're here,
Sure.
Mr. Straub, would you mind telling the public about our venture on 105th Avenue that we spoke about today?
Yes, no, I haven't got all the details.
Well, just
So,
because I've had a lot of questions about that road, you know, especially with kids crossing it.
so through a couple of years of discussions with transportation, we've been looking at ways to enhance specifically the crosswalks around the highway intersections, one in front of the Days Inn, one at 105th, and in the future, now that Tim Hortons is fairly busy, potentially putting a crosswalk there. We were in partnership with transportation to create the new highway access to Gateway in order to complete that project. And within that project, transportation has done some extra work within that project. So at the intersection of 105th by the high school, where it crosses over towards the college and KFC, the intent is to build a crosswalk, and with that crosswalk will include full sidewalks across the boulevard and then on the other side. So we will have a lighted crosswalk with sidewalks on both sides. Over the years, we've been trying to maintain snow removal to keep the boulevard clear. It is a fairly heavily traveled crosswalk. We have people that travel over to KFC, over to the other stores, as well as the Fairview College over there, or whatever they're calling themselves now.
Northern Lakes.
There we go. See, I'm too old. So it's a great thing. We're glad transportation's doing it. Apparently, there is a couple of culverts they're going to install also. One, I believe, near the end of Main Street, but that's all part of their project. Again, we haven't got the final drawings from transportation. We're working in partnership, but we should be receiving those drawings soon and have very clear detail on what's going to happen. But that is where we're sitting right now, is that project will be going ahead.
And will be completed by?
Before the summer's over. The access, the highway access, and they have a portion of paving as well as these small jobs included within it. That'll be starting right away. We've had an initial meeting with their engineering firm, and we're having, I think, a kickoff meeting sometime soon here in May. Their contract is fully executed. They have the contractors lined up to do the work. They've already started on some of the culvert work south of town, if you've seen some equipment in the ditch. So it will be starting right away. We do have our tender for Gateway near completion. We've got the design done, and they figure within 2 weeks that tender will be ready. So we'll be tendering the Gateway project to coincide. So Once the access is completed, we should be tying directly in at the same time, or relatively at the same time, completing Gateway Boulevard from Highway 35 right up to the Home Hardware intersection where it terminated.
So good news for the parents and kids
Yes, very
crossing the
good.
highway.
And we are still looking at 2 other potential illuminated crosswalks within town, 2 different styles to test them out. We're looking at 2 things, function and economy. If they become popular, we would like to have the more economic version that we put out, so we're not putting hundreds of thousands of dollars. But we are looking at a couple of options, and Madam Mayor, that you suggested. So.
Did you have a question?
Well, I was just gonna ask about the tender contracts for the highway, but you answered it already.
So there'll be 3 tenders. So there's one is Transportation's done their tendering process for the highway access, which the town of High Level has partnered on. And the second tender going out will be for Gateway itself, the roadway and the curb work. And the third tender will be parallel to that for the Sandy dump and new water station that will be right at the at the entry level of Gateway. We looked at tendering them as a joint project, but we don't want to hold up the development of Gateway in case the water station and the Sandy dump is delayed sideways. So, but they'll all come out within weeks of each other. And all of those projects should be completed hopefully by the end of August. We're excited.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. No other questions?
No. All right. A RFD to refresh the Mackenzie Crossroads Museum and Visitor logo.
Madam Mayor, Director Wolf is on Zoom to present this RFP.
Can't see her.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Oh, there. I can see Miss Councillor Jessamine now too.
Good evening, Madame Mayor and Council. Everybody can hear me okay?
Yep, loud and clear.
Perfect. So this is a request for decision for a refresh of the Mackenzie Crossroad Museum and Visitor Center logo. So our first mayor of High Level back in 1980 had a vision to have a museum and visitor center. And the grand opening was actually on August 24th, 1991. Logo was designed for the museum prior to the opening. And we thought as a way to commemorate the 30th anniversary that we'd like to hold a logo refresh contest. We'd like to see the logo stay intact insofar as that it should still represent the theme of our museum, the fur trade, farming, history, and culture. And at the same time too, we've been working on getting our first visitor information guide complete, and we'd like that to also be part of the 30th anniversary and to purchase some stickers with the new logo on it. So we're requesting that council approve that we move forward with a new 2021 logo refresh to commemorate our 30th anniversary, which is pretty exciting.
Any questions? Yes.
Is there any prize for the design or for the contest, or is there an award?
We hadn't worked out the details yet, whether we were going to put out a contest and see what we got in, or whether we would do it as an expression of interest. So we were hoping that council would leave the details up to us, and I'm sure we can come up with something that would be successful.
So Director Rolfe, does that include changing the name?
Does the name need to change?
No, I'm just wondering, does a logo rebrand, or does that change the name of it, or you're just changing the scenery around the name?
Yeah, it wasn't our intention to change the name. It was more just a refresh. So whether it's a little more vibrant, a little more colors, maybe putting something more into it. That was kind of the idea. Make it a little more. I wouldn't say modern. It looks good like it is. So I don't think we're looking for anything really radical.
Okay. I mean, I'm just asking the question. You know, because it explains where it is, it gives a location, but it doesn't really explain what the museum's about. That was my question, because a lot of museums are rebranding now and changing kind of the dynamics of how the museums are, so that was my question and the reason for it. Sort of like one eye on the past, one on the future.
I guess, is it worthy of discussing, maybe not now, but at a future meeting, like whether or not we want to change the name of the museum?
Oh, the name doesn't bother me, but I mean, sometimes when you change your rebranding of something, you kind of change the name as well, because it kind of designates, it's a crossroads, but does it say what the museum is about, or what's the attractions there, or?
It's an awful lot to say in the name.
What does the Louvre say about where the Louvre is?
Maybe a picture that's worth 1,000 words?
Yeah, I mean, like even they're looking at rebranding. So just a question, just don't get your tail feathers in a knot.
I think it'll be interesting to see people's interpretation of what we get back, and that might help move us in the direction that we're going. So our vision would be to refresh this, and we'll see what our residents come up with.
Any other questions? Could I have a motion then?
I'll move for alternative number 1.
Okay. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good evening. So 13.7 is the update on the towers. I think, did you send this to everybody? Did you all get this? Okay, just so the public knows that there was a movement by NAVCAN to can our tower people, no, to get rid of the tower. Through the stakeholders, information and everything, I'm happy to announce to the public that NAV Canada will be staying here. The flight and all the towers that they were proposing to shut down in our area are also going to be staying. I don't think this will be the last of it, but they might come at it again after COVID's over.
But they did say we're still on the list for maybe future alternative
Yeah.
recommendations.
Yes, we're still on the list, but we were on the list in 2009 too.
But they've canceled some of them already.
Yes.
so.
That's the flight services.
Yes,
that
flight
perform
services.
In the tower, those services.
We did, I mean, there was a lot of lobbying from our stakeholders, so I'm happy to report to those stakeholders that the flight services will remain for, I don't know how long. So that was what that update was about. The other one I brought forward was 15.5 to 13.8. The reason I brought it forward was because of the changing face of the postal services and how they're going to rebrand and stay open. And there was here that we could ask for a presentation. I'm just wondering if it's worthwhile to have a presentation from Canada Post on what services they could offer to our area.
Madam Mayor, just a point, this package is from the Canadian Postal Union. This is from the union, not from Canada Post.
Yeah.
But I think it would be worthwhile reaching out to Canada Post and discussing the services that are delivered in the community and how that could be changed, because we've had a number of our rural neighbors that have asked that hours be extended or greater accessibility.
And the ability to use it as not full banking, but also do some banking there. So I don't know if it's the union we want to talk to, or to the, why, aren't you a union person?
I don't think the union's making decisions for Canada Post.
No, but it would give an idea of what people could advocate for. Yes?
I think the union's been lobbying for that for years and years and years. I think so far it's fallen on deaf ears at the federal level, but
Yeah, I guess so, but I mean, at some point, they're gonna have to change, right? From bricks and mortar to more than, to offer more of their services again. But, I mean, if you, council doesn't think it's worthy of entertaining,
I agree with the CAO's suggestion to contact Canada Post to see what kinds of services they could expand in our region.
is that gonna be a motion, or
Certainly.
do you have that
Yep. Reach out to Canada Post.
as a resolution? All in favor? Carried. The last one that I brought forward is the census, and this one is so important, and I know a lot of people feel that a census is the government's way of tracking you. Well, it's not, because they have your social insurance number and all those sorts of things. The census is very important for the town of High Level, because if you don't respond to the census, that means our population numbers go down, and we don't get the money from to build infrastructure in our community. So these census numbers support a lot of municipal programs that are related to infrastructure and transportation, and they're used to measure Canada's sustainable development. So once again, I'm appealing to the public to please, you're going to get these census in your mailboxes. You can complete them online. You can complete them via phone if you don't have a computer, or you can just complete the paper package and send it back. And we will be having people come around as well to talk to those that have not completed their census. So please, I know we all hate filling out surveys, but this is one that is very important to the town of High Level. Does anybody, oh yes.
Does administration currently know what our per capita grant funding is from the province?
In total?
No, like per capita. So it used to be like $400 a person, or
We actually receive a number of different packages, MSI, gas tax fund.
in total.
Well, actually, I don't have the budget with me. We could probably add it up quite quickly though. But it's millions of dollars.
No, but I'm talking about on a per person basis. So
Oh.
if everyone was to understand that, for example, if the town gets $500 for every resident, for each additional resident who fills out the census, the town gets an extra $500 or whatever it is, which directly equates to what we need to raise through property taxes. So the more we get in per capita funding from other levels of government, the less potential there is for tax revenue to be raised by the community. So this is also a way of keeping the taxes as low as possible. It costs what it costs to run the town, and the more money we can get from other levels of government, the less we have to get directly from our ratepayers here locally. So it's super important that people fill out the census just for that reason alone. The second part, and administration can correct me if I'm wrong, up until this year, we used to have the ability, after the federal census was completed, of initiating and doing our own municipal census. I think the last time we did that, we counted about 800 people more than what the federal census was, which at $500 per person equated to $400,000 per year. The federal government now has eliminated that possibility, and I understand we'll no longer be able to do our own municipal census. So this is sort of a one and done. It's an every 4-year endeavor, so just super, super important that people really take it seriously. That was out about a year ago.
Yes.
Sorry, thank you. The ability to do a municipal census is still there for the municipality, but we're only allowed to use it for our own research or proof. The Alberta government will no longer accept a municipal census in any of their figures for deciding money. So they've repealed the regulation around that.
So yes, last time that we did a Canada-wide census, our population was at 3,185 people. After we did our own census, we did find 800 people, which, if it was 400, equates to a lot of money. Ms. Phillips, do you have that number?
I was just looking online, and it says that, Albertans per capita for this, spending that we receive. Oh, yeah, it just states that it's 11,000 per person in Alberta, but I'd have to go and look at the report.
I think the deputy mayor's fairly close on this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was a little bit higher, but it doesn't matter. It is like we receive a certain amount of money per person we have on our census, and that's where we get our infrastructure from. So, I mean, it's very important to the town to get that. We get our gas tax money, our MSI. All of that money is contingent on those census, so just an appeal to everybody to please do it.
Madam Mayor, just one more thing, if you don't mind as well, is encourage people who may be interested in being census takers to please apply. Both the town of High Level and Ready will support those individuals who are doing it. We can supply maps, we can supply tracking. So we are encouraging local people to take the census for us.
Okay. Yes, we are encouraging local people to become census takers so that we know that we're being looked after locally. Historically, we've had census takers from Calgary and who knows where. And all they do is knock on the door during the day while most of us are working, and then leave something on your doorknob. So if you want to be a census taker, please contact the town and we will get you pointed in the right direction. But we have from May to the end of June, is it, or end of July?
End of July.
End of July. So thank you for your support. Is there anything else under correspondence for information? There's not much left. But
Just said it.
oh, sorry, I forgot about SETI. Okay, so a letter from, or an email from Marissa. We set Tuesday, May 4th as a date and Tuesday, May 18th as a backup date. And there seems to be a mixed response in calendars, so can council confirm May 4th or May 18th? Let's get that date tonight. As what?
Oh, but.
Yeah, but which do you prefer?
May the 4th. May the 4th be with you.
Star Wars Day. May the 4th is good.
This will be a Zoom meeting.
Yes. Well, we may gather.
Is it morning, like 9 a.m., is that correct?
Yes. 9.
No, it's only half a day for you guys, all day for the working group.
I mean, May the 4th, for half a day.
Councillor Anderson?
The 4th won't work for me.
Are you gonna be out and about somewhere?
I'll be in a manager's meeting all day.
Councillor Anderson?
Sure, 4th works as good as any.
I guess it's the 4th, sorry, Councillor Jessamine.
That's okay. I understand.
Unless everybody can do the 18th. Everybody seems to prefer the 4th. So the 4th it is. Sorry. All right, so this ends our public portion of our meeting. Could I have somebody move us into in camera?
I'll move 15.2 to 15.4.
Oh,
for
sorry.
information.
I forgot. 15.2 to 15.4 for information. All in favor? Carried.
I'll also move us in